water, sugar, milk solids, fat. Ice cream is a harmony of these four simple elements. So, the other day, I had this crazy idea. I was thinking about how the texture of an ice cream is a function of the ratios of the four basic components. Most of them, of course, show up naturally in milk and cream. And as I got to thinking about developing my own ideal ice cream base, I realized that that was probably going to involve a lot of math. I was going to have to calculate the ratios of each component in each of the ingredients and then find a way to reproduce that consistently over multiple trials in order to arrive at something that I wanted. And all of those calculations just aren't something that poetry school prepared me for. So I wanted to find a way to cut out all of those extra steps and just deal with the four basic elements directly. Ice cream isn't a ratio of milk and cream, it's a ratio of water and butterfat. So why not just start there? So as I begin my search for my own ideal ice cream recipe, I say, why not start with my own reconstituted abomination of a recipe, dealing directly with the four essential elements of ice cream: water, milk powder, sugar, and clarified butter. If I do that, I wonder, can I discover a more precise and less math-intensive method for testing different ingredient ratios? Well, I don't have to wonder. I gave it a shot, and here's how it turned out. Like I mentioned, ice cream is essentially a balancing act played out among the four basic elements, each playing a different role in the final texture. Now, we're not food scientists, so we'll have to get into the details some other day, but the basic idea is that water is good, but it creates ice. Sugar inhibits the formation of that ice. So the more sugar you have, the less icy and less frozen your ice cream will get. Long story short, in Dana Cree's book, Hello, My Name is Ice Cream, we can see a basic recipe and the calculated percentages for each of the four basic components. So, for 1,000 total grams of ingredients, we end up with 90 grams of milk solids, 175 grams of butterfat, 195 grams of sugar, and 540 grams of water. Because this was a test, and because I didn't even know if it would work, I figured I should only gamble with a half batch. So I did do a little math, and I cut those numbers in half. My goal was to match the ratios, but just use the elemental ingredients, and then see how close to a real thing I could get with this unhinged plan. And here you can see my assembled ingredients. 270 grams of water, 45 grams of non-fat milk powder, 87.5 grams of clarified butter, 75 grams of sugar, and 2 grams of soy lecithin with 1/8 of a teaspoon of xanthan gum. But wait, Dr. B, that looks like way more than 2 grams of soy lecithin. Yep, remember what I said about math? I was supposed to do 0.65% of the liquid mass in soy lecithin, but I did the math wrong and ended up measuring out 6.5%. So what you see here is an order of magnitude off, but I did make a second batch and fixed it for the final result. And don't even think about complaining about my math unless you want me complaining about your commas. Now, Cree's recipe involves bringing milk and cream up to a boil, adding in the sugar and some additional milk powder, and then cooking the mixture for 2 minutes. So that's what I did, with the small adjustment that I just threw everything in together. Because we're not doing a scientific test, just a creative experiment. This is really more like poetry, not chemistry. From there, I let the mixture cool down. I'd heard soy lecithin doesn't work as well in very hot liquids, and then I poured it into the blender with 10 times too much lecithin and the xanthan gum. With the blender whizzing and roaring away, I then drizzled in my clarified butter. See, when you use actual wholesome ingredients, the butterfat is already perfectly suspended in the cream. And now, I'm trying to make my own corrupted version of what nature does naturally. So I enlisted the help of an emulsifier, and that's why the lecithin is here. And I reintroduced the butter in the way I've seen people on TV make mayonnaise. And when you describe this as sweet, watery mayonnaise, how could you not get excited? Oh, and don't forget the teaspoon of vanilla. It might be a weird artificial emulsion that we're making, but it can at least taste decent, right? Well, with the concoction fully concocted, I left it in the fridge to settle down while I prepared a wholesome, all-natural version of the same recipe, which also got to spend the night in the fridge. And joy of joys, it's churning time. If you're just walking into the room or tuning in late, you might not know what the rest of us know. This unassuming vanilla ice cream is actually a perversion of the natural order. The fact that it doesn't look like it is part of the exciting danger. So, as always, once it was churned with its legitimate cousin too, I put both in the freezer to harden overnight. Ah, and here we are, 2 scoops of beautiful vanilla ice cream. Can you spot the imposter? It could be this one here. It could be this one there. Which one will you choose? Well, I do know, and I think this might be more fun if we all know, so the imposter cream is on the right. That's not your natural colloidal suspension, it's a kitchen-engineered emulsion. And I don't know about you, but if there is a visual difference, it's way too subtle to care about. But what about the taste? This is, after all, a test of textures, to see if this is a viable method for testing out ratios and ingredients in the future. So we ought to dig in, don't you think? Here goes the fake one, and, well, it's actually really good vanilla ice cream. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Nothing about this is immediately strange or unusual. If I didn't know how it was made, I wouldn't even think to ask any questions about it. It's smooth, sweet, everything it should be, and nothing it shouldn't. I'll even take a bite of the real one, too, because, well, why not? And I gotta say, it's virtually indistinguishable. It looks the same, it mashes the same, it melts the same. I might as well taste them again, and I will say there's the most timid extra taste on the back of my palate from the engineered version. But aside from that, I don't detect a meaningful difference. So I think we just discovered something, and it feels thrilling and transgressive all at the same time. You know, every once in a while I have an ice cream experience that makes me feel like a real magician, and actually, this has now found itself at the top of that list. Turns out you can make a perfectly legitimate ice cream just by combining the elemental ingredients in the right way. Now, this isn't to say that I've discovered the new best way to make ice cream. The 2 results were virtually indistinguishable, but the engineered version was ever so slightly worse. But that wasn't the test. I was interested in finding out if this method would give me a more controlled and repeatable way to test different recipes, and to that end, I'd say this was a rousing success. And I also think that there's some good creative potential to this method, but I'll save that for later. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out when all of that fun unfolds. But until then, thanks for watching, especially for sticking around to the end. I think it's the best kind of people who watch a video all the way to the end, so as a reward, please enjoy some distressing footage of what it looks like when you churn ice cream that has 10 times too much soy lecithin in it.